Tell you about shares of Boeing right now. They closed nearly 3% higher yesterday after Boeing's board fired CEO Dennis Muilenburg. The decision coming as the company faces the worst crisis in its history, 100-year history. Boeing has struggled to regain the trust of regulators, customers, and the public since the crashes of two 737 MAX jets killed more than 346 people. Now, Chairman David Calhoun will become the company's CEO in January. I want to show you a little bit of video. I spoke to Dennis Muilenburg back at that DealBook conference I did in November, his last public interview as CEO, and I asked him at that time whether he'd consider resigning. This is what he had to say.
Has there ever been a day where you're sitting around going, you know what, this is not working. It's not working. I got to get out of here. It's better for the company for me to leave.
Andrew, I think it's fair to say I've thought about it. But to be frank, that's not what's in my character. I don't see running away from a challenge, resigning, as the right solution.
I have to say, at the time that he said that, I admired the answer. I really did. Does everybody here think, I'm actually curious, is the David Calhoun appointment a game changer? Stock went up 3%, but you look at some of the commentary this morning. I'm looking at Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat of Connecticut, so many others who say, you know what, David Calhoun effectively part of the problem because he was there. He came on our air, if you remember, about a month ago, endorsed, Dennis Muilenburg endorsed the timeline in terms of when the MAX was going to come online again. He's been there for most of this period. Is he enough of a change?
I think so. You and I had this debate yesterday off air. He's of the system, but he was not the chairman of the company. This is a very complicated business, by and large, a great company. And if you bring somebody entirely new in from the outside, that has all sorts of other challenges. Dave Calhoun has had a long, exemplary career. And I think Larry Kellner also, as chairman, was a great pick. Chairman of Sabre, and has had a long career in aviation.
It's going to really depend on his tonality. I mean, the reason you bring in somebody new is to send a new message. And as he's been doing phone, I'm sure he's been on the phone for the last 48 hours talking about what's going to be different now with regulators, with Blumenthal, et cetera. All of these things. What does he say, and how does he change how the company has acted thus far? That would go a long way.
So I know David a little bit personally. He serves on the board of my college, Virginia Tech, so I've gotten to know him just sort of as a human being a little bit. And David is the anti-Dennis. I think that Dennis was that sort of stiff, sort of super formal. David walks around. You can't get him to wear a suit. He wears jeans. He's a casual guy. He's friendly, hates wearing ties. He just wants to, he's a communicator. He was the CEO of Nielsen. He was running GE jet engines, so he's kind of a salesman type. I think, Andrew, it comes down to everything about how well do you communicate? Because obviously Muilenburg, as you did in that great interview, Muilenburg ticked off, I almost said something else, the FAA. FAA's like, you don't tell us what to do, we tell you what to do.
Ticked off the FAA, ticked off regulators.
The NTSB.
And by the way, also, I think ultimately had lost the trust of his clients, meaning the big airline CEOs. If you spoke with the big airline CEOs over the past couple of weeks, the frustration level, the fact that Gary Kelly was on the record in the New York Times saying...
And on CNBC.
And on CNBC too. But I was just saying just that last article over the weekend, which I thought the comments were scathing. That, to me, is where you say to yourself, okay, how do you repair that relationship? And even if you're the best guy in the world... I mean, even if you're the greatest, nicest guy, and I think that Dennis is an upstanding guy, I'm not here to disparage Dennis, but I think it's very hard to get that credibility back.
And Spirit Airlines just announced they're buying 100 planes from Airbus. And you wouldn't think that Spirit Airlines would be buying from Airbus. I think that those sort of evidential points are building
But I think
up.
there's two other, and let's not forget, I mean, it was certainly nowhere near the level of the 737 MAX, but you also had this Starliner, this rocket space issue. I mean, so
now rocket science is hard.
Rocket science is hard, and I'm not a rocket scientist, nor do I play one on television, Michelle. But it is. I think that might have been, Andrew, sort of wow. Again, just miscalculations.
Another negative front page story.
All over the front. Boeing rocket fails.
It was bad timing, but everybody fails in space missions. SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, every single one of them.
As well.
Yeah, terrible timing.
Pile on.
And one other thing to highlight, and Steve Leisman has pointed this out, Boeing, to a large degree, affects national GDP in an outsized way because those large items feed directly into the equation. When you hear, oh, they're going to order Airbus, perhaps instead of Boeing, It has, national implications in a big way.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because I think that this is a part of the story that maybe we as CNBC haven't gone into enough, but maybe we will. Because all of us around this table fly a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So, Andrew.
Yes.
When the MAX comes back in.
Yes, but you're talking to the wrong guy. I will look. I will look because that's who I am.
I have met people who said, I will never get on that plane again. Regular flyers. Would you fly the MAX?
I ultimately will, but I don't think that I would be.
I will.
I think if it was the first plane out of the gate, meaning it's up on the first couple of weeks.
Don't worry, Phil LeBovie on that flight.
3 or 4 months, no. However, I will say this. Right now, and I don't know if even people appreciate this, we were talking about this off air yesterday as well. Some of these planes are actually flying around as we speak because they're being moved by special pilots, not even special pilots, but pilots from American Airlines, from some of the other airlines, from one place to the next. And from what I'm told, the pilots have no problem getting on these planes and flying them empty, typically from one airport to another, just to store them. But the reason they don't have the problem is because they understand how the MCAS system works.
Right.
Sure.
Having said that, I've also asked the question privately of some of the airline CEOs who have had these planes in the air. While they've been in the air, have they ever had a problem with the MCAS system? And they say no.
But there was a Bank of America survey a couple days ago where they polled people, and it was like a high number of people. Now, listen, what people say and what they do is very different, but they said they'll never get back on the plane. And I just wonder if you're United, Southwest, or American, and your passengers start to say, I need to be rebooked. I don't feel comfortable. And the planes start going half full, you got an issue if you're Boeing.
I'll believe it when I see it. Full disclosure,
yeah.
I own shares of Boeing.
You do?
I bought them when they fell 20% on the initial report.
Now that she's out of the journal, she's no longer.
We can't own stocks.
She's no longer an official journalista anymore.
I'm going the other way. I asked an analyst yesterday, what is the stock price of Boeing if there's no 737 MAX?
Right, and what they say, I'd like to know.
275.
Okay,
275
I will
is their
definitely
position.
be underwater.
I think it's a real scenario. It's a real scenario. I'm not predicting it, but it's a real possibility.